1993 Dodge Shadow ES. The official car of... Hey, my friend had one of these in high school.
All dodged up, got misspelled tattoos. Suddenly see the one making all the dad jokes is you. Got a Peabody convertible to flex on that ass. Trying to save money on gas.
In the early 1990s, this was Japan's idea of a small, affordable convertible. A high-revving, three-cylinder, cracking, popping, tight little two-seater with not much power, but an engine that encourages you to use every drop. And this was America's idea of an affordable convertible. A wet, styrofoam cooler powered by a minivan engine. Sloppy suspension, a hood bulge that means nothing, and a power band that encourages you to, just get the cream chip beef on toast. You really get your money's worth. What's it say here? OHC? Overhead cam? On both sides of 3 cylinders? Oh, happy day. The steering on a Dodge Shadow feels just like a minivan, rub my belly, and the steering wheel is the same as the minivan. And as you drive, the steering column moves, the dash moves, the doors move, and the center console shakes. A Dodge Shadow feels like a car in an early build of Beam NG, where the physics were extra soft and every body panel was in business for itself. Neil, the owner, has a friend who works for the now FCA, and this friend read the tech memos on the Shadow, and Chrysler expected the Shadow to last, like its entire lifespan. Its projected death is 7 years away from manufacture. That's all they expected these cars to live for. Side note here, weird fog light controls, right? Chrysler gave them center billing on the dashboard, like having fog lights is a supreme luxury. It's like a grandparent's idea of extreme luxury, which is hauling out the same long red holiday dinner table candles that will never be lit, ever. Oh, we got these at French Lick Resort. Aren't they something? Airbags were standard on the Shadow, but ABS was not. ABS doesn't matter because a Dodge Shadow plows forward under every panicked brake maneuver. The only way to make a Dodge Shadow oversteer is to use the parking brake, which is a ratcheting pedal on the floor because it too is a minivan part. Dodge Shadow, brought to you by, well, I got remarried 2 weeks ago, so we'll see how that goes. Dodge Shadow, for the man who says, I got a highly technical question for you. Could you message someone on Facebook if you're not friends with them? 93 Convertible Shadow, the official car of wearing a shirt 2 sizes too large so people think you're eating right. We'll get to engine designations of this Caravan V6 in a moment, but this engine is simultaneously terrible and also perfect for this tiny car. Because you tell people you have a 2-seater, 2+2 convertible with a 3-liter V6 in it, and people go, whoa, that must be something. Hang on. This is one of the most anemic V6s ever made. And it's even more perplexing because Chrysler didn't make it. It's a Mitsubishi V6. So Chrysler looked at them and said, we'll have that. It doesn't even make 200 horsepower. And in the Dodge Caravans, it was terrible. But in a car this small, it's not stressed. It never downshifts. You have to mash the pedal to the floor to make it downshift. Oh, yeah, it has a console shifter here. Forget about it. This thing doesn't really shift gears. Oh, yeah, you can put it in a low, but it'll only shift if it thinks it has to. You're really just sort of asking suggestions of the transmission. Hey, son. If a Dodge Shadow and Mitsubishi Eclipse got into an accident, would anybody see it? Dad joke. 1993 Dodge Shadow ES Convertible. You ask for a stylish, sporty Chrysler from the 90s, and a finger curls on the monkey's paw. In 1985, the old Dodge Aries and Plymouth Reliance were being put out to pasture in favor of new Peabody designs that offered that same big car feel as the K cars, with now an expensive car aesthetic and a hidden, no straight face, and a hidden hatchback storage compartment, all on a smaller but heavier body. The transverse front-engine, front-wheel drive Dodge Shadow is basically an up-jump Dodge Lancer, with body stampings from the Dodge Daytona. And while the hope was that Lee Iacocca's ideology of creating cars with interchangeable parts to reduce costs would lead to a more profitable outcome for the Peabodys, Chrysler pretty much lost its ass on the Shadow and on the Plymouth Sundance, despite neither car requiring a completely new platform. According to an article from Industry Week in March 1996, the Peabodys cost $600 million to develop, and while sales topped out at nearly 200,000 units per year, these cars still lost Chrysler money. And while several sources we Googled made the same claim as Industry Week, none of them really offered an explanation as to why, which makes it all the more strange. In theory, costs should have been low and profits high, since they were unibodies running off of a variant of the pre-existing K platform and selling above the average MSRP for a car in 1993, but not so much higher that it would make the car unaffordable to someone in the market for a new car, but also had a little extra to spend on nicer trim levels, so it should have turned a profit, but, well, it's not like we know what the Chrysler books look like. According to Car Gurus, the original MSRP of the two-door ES convertible was $14,652. The average cost of a new car in 1993 was $12,750. In 2019 dollars, this is the difference between a $22,500 car and a $26,000 car. That's the ballpark of a new base model Subaru Impreza. Granted, this is all in hindsight, but the Dodge Shadow is an important car to the history of Chrysler prior to the Fiat acquisition. This is the bridge between the K cars of the 1980s and the smaller, more compact Mopar designs of the 1990s. You don't get the Dodge Neon without the Dodge Shadow. If the Dodge Neon was Chrysler's high watermark, the Dodge Shadow was the swell leading up to it. The best part of shooting a load is almost shooting a load. The up-trimmed Shadows came with the 3-liter Mitsubishi 6G72 V6 single overhead cam engine. It makes, all right, this is a 3-liter V6. You ready for the horsepower numbers? Remember, this is fuel injected. Remember, this is a Japanese engine. You ready? 141 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 171 foot-pounds of torque at 2,400 RPM. Remember that torque number, that low RPM torque number. That's what makes this thing climb hills and not need to downshift. But come on, man, really? It's mated to a 4-speed automatic, well, technically 3-speed with overdrive transmission, because you don't control the overdrive. The owner, Neil, purchased this for $150! Whole car, $150. In 2013, and although the starter was shot, he was able to get it running with a $30 eBay starter. But it wouldn't be the only issue he'd encounter, because when you let a car sit for years and years and years, you're gonna be replacing stuff. There's no two ways about it. The original owners discovered a coolant leak, and that was the last straw. They just didn't want this car on their insurance anymore, and yet they didn't want to scrap it either, even though they would have gotten more in scrap than $150 for this thing. But they didn't want to see the car get junked. Bless them. What these older cars lack in reliability, they make up for in character. The way they represent their era, with the clarity of a near-death experience. Dodge Shadow. The official car of playing a shareware copy of Doom while listening to Enter the Wu-Tang. The brochure for the Shadow really starts throwing the words around. It's like they're trying to sell you on a roommate or a low-maintenance relationship. Shadow is remarkably easy to live with. Just change the oil, filters, and air cleaner, and replace the spark plugs every 30,000 miles. How can a car that gives you so much ask so little in return? Shadow's fashionable, functional looks, subdued amounts of bodywork, Full wrapping around the wide body-style moldings, color-keyed grille and bumper guards, aero-styled halogen headlights, and sporty Blackwall tires with solid aero-type wheels. I have told you nothing about reliability and performance. Chrysler desperately wanted you to believe that this was a sportier car than it is. It's like a player in a Pop Warner football game. Yeah, the uniform makes them look like a smaller version of the real thing, but for the most part, it's just kids amped up on sugary energy drinks, gracelessly colliding with one another as angry dads shout from the sidelines, desperately investing their draft day hopes in a kid who hasn't even gotten to the Louisiana Purchase yet in their history class. There's a plate on this model that states it was altered by the Automotive Specialty Company in March of 1993 when it was converted from a hardtop into a convertible. However, the VIN lists it as a convertible. That's how Chrysler built this convertible. They outsourced it to a different company to saw the roof off of it because it was cheaper than building an entirely new unibody for a convertible. Every single one of these convertibles started as a coupe and then got their roofs chopped off and a bunch of extra metal welded to the floor to hold the car together. And still, they lost money on these things. The fuel economy for the convertible model was around 25 city and 32 highway. And with the approximate cost of gas in 1993 coming out to $1.16 a gallon, which is in the ballpark of $2.05 today, man, that's good. It was pretty fuel efficient, even if it's light on features. Although the features this does have are either mods like a Motorola Spectra Astro UHF radio, and these wheels aren't Shadow wheels, they're the Chrysler LeBaron pizza wheels. Other features are standard power-assisted brakes, power-assisted rack and pinion steering, remember it's early 90s, and cast aluminum wheels, stainless steel exhaust system, and driver airbags. If you had a hardtop, it would be a 5-seater, but the convertible only seats 4 because the convertible top needs space to fold into, so that pushes the rear seats forward. So there's less room. But hey, the convertible cladding covers where the cuts were made for the top, so there's that. And you get a locking glove box, exclusive to the convertible. You know, for storing important things like proof of insurance, condoms, Gold Bond, Stridex pads. Dodge Shadow, sponsored by Athlete's Face. Find someone who drives a Dodge Shadow in 2019 and you'll find someone who's planted his flag firmly on Mount Mopar. And damn it, he's gonna die on that hill. Because these cars, these are the Wingadinga cars of the future, but maybe we won't call them Wingadingas. How about Wunkadunkas? The Chumbawambas? The Werpadurpas? The, well, I feel when my dog just ate my sweater. At the very least, they're cars that open you up to all sorts of dad jokes. Hey, son, don't let Punxsutawney Phil see you in this thing, or we'll be in for 6 more weeks of winter. Dodge Shadow. A car so American, it's still waiting in the parking lot outside the high school field house on a Friday night to beat up the referee. Dodge Shadow convertible, it's so 90s it thinks Deep Blue something is here to stay. Dodge Shadow, sponsored by Situational Trust. Because I'll let you borrow my unaltered Laserdisc copy of the original Star Wars trilogy, but you're not going anywhere near my Dodge Shadow after what you did to my Mongoose mountain bike. I've replaced the seat twice, and somehow it's still sticky. Look, this car is awful. It has no sporting characteristics. And yet, Chrysler sold it as a sports car, and the populace believed them. Here, eat these Alestro chips. They have 0 fat. Yay! You're gonna poop like a California mudslide. Can't hear you, no fat. Hear me out. This is 1993, and I'm savoring this overpromised, underdelivered, hot square of Chrysler parts bin marketing like it's a hot strawberry Pop-Tart on a Friday morning, and I studied for Mr. Jeffrey's chem test like a boss last night, and I'm gonna crush this test! Yeah! It's now 1998 in my mind right now, and 93 Dodge Shadow keys are falling into our 17-year-old hands like fundraiser caramello bars. Who cares if it will decapitate you if it rolls over? We're still standing up in the back as we drive out of the stadium parking lot. What's the security guard gonna do? Yell at us? He doesn't even know our names and he's half blind anyway. The belt line is so low, Greg Watch Your Head Tumbleson can touch the ground while sitting down. 1993 Dodge Shadow. Brought to you by, hey, can I borrow your Sublime CD? I'll tape it and give it right back tomorrow. Shadow Convertible. My dick is so mangled it looks like a lovable but dopey sidekick in an animated educational film about the circulatory system. I'm doing one hits with the exchange student and he's only been here 3 months and already you found a hookup. We're cruising in a drop-top shadow and the lights of Rita's Italian Ice never looked brighter.
Mexico Bill.
Which has the vehicle weight.
Burb. Frickin' burb.
All dodged up, got misspelled tattoos. Suddenly see the one making all the dad jokes is you. Got a Peabody convertible to flex on that ass. Trying to save money on gas. All dodged up for another car review. Got the MSRP details from the sidecar gurus. Thought I heard off Wiener saying as a Porsche went past. Time to start hauling this ass.